this lunch, be late for lunch. Welcome. Thanks for braving the weather. It's going to get better. I'm just sure of it. Golly, what a rough start to summer, but we're happy you're here. We have lunch coming. It'll be delivered about 11, so we're going to try to not have to stop the meeting and have them bring things around to that corner. So if you could just bear with us while that happens, it should be quick. All that being said, first order of business is the minutes of the April meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at those?
I move for approval.
Second.
Oh my God.
Sure?
There's one thing on there that said that they were going to meet with Humble on April the 2nd. That would have been before the meeting.
Right, I saw that. I saw
think
that.
that's May 2nd.
And then, could we also add not present but participated with me?
I have no problem with that.
Or via phone?
So I move approval with the amendments.
Okay. It has been, do I need a second, please?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the April meeting with the amendments noted. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That brings us to the next order of business, and we have Sarah Powers from Indiana University Water Testing with us to share the 2018 results. There you are. Come on up, Sarah.
So, I have put some copies of the report over on the table there. I created a more summarized version as well for those who didn't want to see everything, all the parameters that kind of lays out the more important ones. Things look pretty much as they have over the years, so the lake has been maintaining the way it has for a long time. I don't know if there are specific sections the board would like me to talk about or address. The temperature and oxygen profiles look very similar to as they have. Our stream and lake sites remain the same last year. We have been sampling the overflow pond more regularly. So we have all the water quality parameters included in here for you that we collect at Reed and Riddle Point, which is more extensive parameters. But I took those out of the smaller summary report for those of you who are interested. There are more copies because I thought most people don't really know what all those parameters lead to or the information.
Did you touch on some of the results from the overflow pond testing?
I will. That's towards the end, so we'll come back to that in a moment, if that's okay. So we have all of those parameters there for you. We also look at seasonal changes, so there's a distribution of that to look at seasonal shifts. We see the typical increase in algae and nutrients available in the water during the season, which is very typical of lakes and typical of Lake Lemon. It does attribute to the very normal conditions that you expect in a reservoir, where you have higher nutrients, higher chlorophyll, so algae and where you have the river coming in, and then transitions into a more lake-like state as you move further down closer to the dam. So it's more riverine and then shifts as you go down the lake. We had a student who did some extra work on it last year looking at long-term data sets and found that to be very, very constant over time in the lake. So a lot of the sediment things coming in settle out, which you all know because that's why you have to dredge regularly. So seasonal shifts, and then we get into our bacteria. Last year we did some intensification in the Chitwood area, but we also sampled many different areas. So table 4 has tributary and E. coli samples. I think in the more summarized version it's table 1 because I took out the extra tables for you. So typical, the E. coli is pretty high, which is normal for a riverine-like system when you have lots of streams coming in, but they are relatively high overall. So we can see all those values. The E. coli is very closely related to turbidity, so the amount of sediment and particles coming in. When you have more sediment and particles, it's likely as a result of rainfall, which is going to lead to more E. coli and bacteria being in the water. Last year, the board asked that we look more closely at the long-term data. So this year, I specifically dialed in on the Chitwood area that we've been sampling because that was one of the points of concern. But I do want to point out that Knob Creek that comes in across the road over by the marina, but not at the marina. Because across the street is where we're sampling, is just as high as the Chitwood neighborhood. So when we sample that as well, we have high concentrations. We also have high concentrations for coliform forming units, I guess is how you explain it specifically, in Bear Creek and Bean Blossom Creek as well. So it is higher there. But we dialed in and looked specifically at the Chitwood neighborhood because that had been discussed a lot last meeting. So I have a long-term trend from 1999 looking all the way through to 2018 data on this display for you. And I wanted to point out that we do see when we do sample the Chitwood neighborhood, and I looked specifically at when we switched to E. coli. Because when we switched from fecal coliform, which isn't a direct best indicator of bacteria, it's an indicator of fecal coliform forming units, but E. coli is specifically the one that you want to look at when you're looking at a human health concern. And over 50% of the time when we sample that neighborhood, it is above recordable standards. So the EPA designates that, the World Health Organization, as 200 colony forming units per milliliter of water, and we have over 50% of the time it's exceeding those levels. I will indicate that we haven't been able to get into that neighborhood yet this year. When I went out to sample, I was standing on the bridge over Bean Blossom, and it started lightning, and I had to abandon it for the day. So we
You do
haven't
have
been-
children to take care of, right?
Yeah,
I don't blame you.
Probably should have been left even standing on the bridge. So we abandoned, we haven't been to sample that yet. I'm hoping to get out there this week. I also don't want to bring unrepresentative samples. With all this rainfall, it's not really going to indicate what is going on right now. We also sampled in the lake this May, and in June. In May, it didn't exceed the recordable standards, but in June, when we were out here on June 17th at both Reed and Riddle Point, it did exceed those values. So we had concentrated CFUs is the term. Colony forming units were, I think, close to 400. I took a picture of the data so I can give you exact numbers. So at Riddle, it was 400 CFUs per milliliter, and at Reed, it was 720. So in the lake during that time, most of the time in the open water at both Reed and Riddle, we see concentrations that are well below what is safe to recreate in. But due to all this rainfall, it's something that I think should be looked at, just monitored if it continues to rain like it has.
We also monitor at the beach, but that's not right.
Correct, yeah, we do weekly monitoring at the beach throughout the season, so it's more late at Labor Day. And those generally come in pretty, it stays pretty flushed out at the beach. With the rain and a little bit high, those generally come in around 12 to 15 CFUs.
But you said you sampled at Riddle.
At Riddle.
When you say that, isn't that right here at the beach?
Riddle is not, so when we, our Riddle Point, if you look at the map
Right.
on the second page, we sample, it's actually right next to Seminary Island.
Okay.
So that's the deepest point
Okay.
over there where the channel comes through, so that's where we sample, trying to get the most representative of the lake-like condition at that deep point of the lake. And we did find high concentrations that day. It was raining that day while they were out here. We've had a lot of rain.
Okay.
Basically, you're gonna have a
So,
lot of
and
water.
back, and back to your point, rain seems to be the new normal. So how do we know when we, you know, how do you gauge what is a normal period to make decisions in?
That's a good question, and I think that's a major question or discussion with the board and with the Conservancy as a whole. What are we gonna, how are we gonna know what's gonna be the new norm, and what do we need to sample to represent that, so that we get the best picture. I can't
Okay, no, I appreciate that.
the norm on that. I think that is a point of conversation that I did want to discuss. How are we, what would you want the sampling regime to be? We typically try to get a storm event during the year, so some point when it has been raining a lot, to try to indicate that. I can say that right now, if I were to go out and sample any of those stream sites, they're going to exceed. There's no doubt.
it's a balanced sampling, it seems to me, that we need
Right.
to achieve, and how do we do that going
That's-
forward with the new,
I think we're trying to do as best we can.
Right.
Yeah.
Does this report go to the City of Bloomington Utilities then too, since we're required under our lease to have you do this, or? I mean,
They can all know on the website and then the board meetings, so they know where they're all at.
So long-term trends in Lake look very similar to what they have. We can see the long-term trends in the last couple of pages here with chlorophyll. So moving away from the bacteria, but moving to, we use Carlson's Trophic State Index. It's a very typical index that indicates the level of productivity of the lake. And the lake remains pretty much where it has been. So that's a good sign. That's a good thing that it's not getting a lot better, but it's not getting worse. So for the Secchi depth, which is the transparency, how deep we can see through the water column, it was pretty constant where it has been over time. The lake is a eutrophic lake, highly productive, but that's expected for a reservoir, especially of the age of the reservoir. And then the chlorophyll A also remains relatively high in the eutrophic levels as well, sometimes dipping down below. And then we see with the total phosphorus, actually last year we had less phosphorus in the lake than we typically have at our later samplings, which is good because the algae need the phosphorus to grow. Typically we see less phosphorus than what we would expect in a lake for the less chlorophyll. So less algae being produced than we would expect for the amount of phosphorus in the lake, because there's a lot of turbidity from sediment that comes in that shades some of that out. So it's not a typical 1-to-1 ratio that you expect to see in things. So with that being said, all of the nutrients lead to algal growth, which leads to some of the concerns about the toxin-producing algae that we have found in the lake, which is common, not super common. A lot of them are common, the blue-green algae or cyanobacteria. And I think it was in 2017, we noticed a rust color in the overflow ponds. I don't know if many of you remember that. It turned a very strange orangey color. We sampled it. That was Cylindros phonopsis, which is a specific algae that produces a toxin. And so we began monitoring that to check regularly for that. Last year, Adam did some more extensive sampling throughout the lake at several sites. When we noticed some of that color starting to form, all of those samples came back below the recordable standard for 100,000 cells per milliliter of bacteria growing in the water, so that algae. This year, we haven't done those yet.
When you say it came in below, you mean like acceptable?
Acceptable
Okay.
levels that you should recreate in. So those are World Health Organization recommendations. The state, through the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, does sampling for that, but they only do it at state parks currently. They don't offer it at anywhere else, so that's been kind of a point of concern for us that they're not actually offering that at other places. So we have been monitoring it though and keeping an eye on it both in the overflow pond and in the lake, and we'll continue to do so this summer. We can modify that plan however is needed for the conservancy and in order to manage that and make sure. I would say this year, if it ever stops raining and as it warms up, it's going to be more concerning and need to be monitored more extensively. We did buy a new sonde that will monitor, so an instrument that will monitor chlorophyll A concentrations and phycocyanin, which is a specific, phycocyanin is a specific pigment that is indicative only to those type of algae that produce toxins. So blue-green algae that produce toxins also produce a colored pigment called phycocyanin. So we're hoping to utilize that out here at the lake more regularly to try to help monitor that as well and see if we can't combine that with some cell counts as well as that instrument to see if we can't develop a relationship to help us monitor it more quickly and rapidly so that we can get out and sample it more quickly without having to do the cell count, which takes a little bit more time. It's more labor intensive, so more cost.
And kind of to that point too, the new program lead for the blue-green algae testing at IDEM is actually a member on our board with Indiana Lakes Management Society. And I've been in discussions with her since Monroe's flooded out and all the beaches are closed. We're the only public beach in Monroe County to try to get them to use some of those sampling dollars to come out here, since we are gathering those people. So I'm in discussions with the section chief there, so if there's any progress on that, we'll update everybody.
And we're willing to partner with that and kind of modify some of our sampling plan to make that work for you as well. It happens to be kind of convenient here, me and Adam to exchange things, but I drive by here every day. So, are there other questions that you have?
I guess I have one, maybe just even for the board. I noticed the last line in your report said conclusions of this,
Kind of left us hanging.
recommendations to be discussed with the board. So, I mean, are we gonna do that now? Or is that gonna be a separate meeting? Because, I mean, it does sound like we got some issues going on. I mean, you know, we got the high E. coli in the Chitwood area and Knob Creek. You know, I mean, I've heard over the years that trailer park makes the marina stink and stuff like that. Maybe it's time to do something about this stuff.
I can answer the Chitwood area. We are in early stages of talks, thanks to Russ Herndon and Frank, of getting a group together to try to get sewers. And if you want to hear more about it, we can, discuss that now. But we are probably maybe 2.5 years, if things go right, to maybe implement a sewer system for District 7.
Would that
What
be
would
your
that-
own little treatment plant there then?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can elaborate on that, but if I may, can I jump in here? Sir, I had a quick question though. Looking at last
Yes.
August, when it wasn't so rainy,
Right.
and your numbers, Knob Creek, 10,400 on the E. coli. Chitwood, Channel 1 and 2, 300 each. The Chitwood stream coming from the agricultural source across the road, 700. So, this rain's throwing a wrench into everything, of course, but
So the stream was actually much higher.
10,000.
10,900 in the
Yeah,
stream.
right.
So the 300 are in the channel 1,
Yeah.
for lack of a better, in front of, between your house and the other house.
Yeah.
And then the other one is in the channel that's more interior that gets all of the homes coming together there. And then the stream. So the stream during that sampling event, I would have to go back and look specifically at the rainfall data that associated with that. I believe the water levels were really, really low,
okay.
and there was barely any water coming through there. When you don't have much water flowing or moving, you can get bacteria also attributed to growth in the sediment when it's hot out
Okay.
and the water's not moving.
All right, so these measurements, are you able to separate the animal from the human people?
There is a way to do it. It is costly, and you have to send them off to a separate lab to be analyzed. So if that's something that the lake or even a group there is interested in doing, we can look into that more in depth. I know when we're starting a project at Lake Monroe this coming year, and that is part of that study, is to have a certain proportion of those samples sent off for analysis to determine source tracking. So it is a possibility to do source tracking.
It
So
seems
how
like
much-
that would be a good idea.
Yeah, how much more costly is it?
I would have
Just-
to look specifically.
Just to ballpark.
I drew up that budget, but it's been well over a year ago when I made that budget.
To that point, the State Department of Health this year is implementing the technology to be able to tell between human and cattle fecal coliform. The Brown County Health Department said we can submit samples through them at no cost once that is implemented, since it is part of Brown County, part of their concern as well. We'll be able to submit samples through Brown County to the state lab just for that purpose of being able to differentiate the types of people.
And that's this year?
Yes, this year the technology should be implemented, and we've been in touch with their health department, so we should be able to do that here relatively soon.
So
That
I was
would be
speaking to
good.
Mike's question earlier about where we are with this sewer proposal. I serve on the Brown County Health Department septic committee. Rewriting their septic ordinance right now. One of the things we're going to include is a pump and haul measure that they outlawed years ago. while that's not the best thing in the world, that would definitely provide a closed loop for any effluent, okay? Means you use 2,000 gallons, you gotta haul 2,000 gallons. You know, that's how that works. So there's a sewer initiative right now for Bean Blossom. It's well down the road. They've got waiting for approval from a grant from the state revolving fund, in which case they're going to propose the Bean Blossom area, come down to Helmsburg. They have an old outdated plan and they've only got like 40 people using it. Their bill's $100 a month. So if they grab that volume and then maybe they reach over and grab our volume. So we're going to try to get rolled into that study yet this fall. So we're either going to find out that yes, it makes sense to come on down. It's a pressurized system, so they don't have to worry about the contour of the ground and the land, and include us in in a group sewer out of Bean Blossom, or that it says that we're better off as a standalone. Frank and I are working that issue right now, so it's possible that we could have our own little plant right over here by us, and we're tentatively, the numbers in meeting with a couple of consultants, around $60-65 a month cost for the individual homeowner, plus their cost to hook up. And all the equipment's maintained by the county or by the our sewer district that we develop. So as Mike said,
What's a hookup cost like? What do you think a hookup cost would be?
just they throw $1,000 at it, just to bring your sewer line out of your house into the tank and pump that's provided.
Okay.
So there's no cost for that. So, and if someone's further away from the sewer line, then they've got a greater distance to go. But we're all pretty close and dense in our area.
Well, might I recommend that, it sounds to me like we have more information certainly to gather, and we do have an issue. I wouldn't disagree that this needs to be further discussed, but this is a whole meeting in itself. Since we are working on having not had our May meeting, I think in the interest of time, we ought to digest what you've given us, and any other questions for Sarah, and then revisit this.
Well, I think it
at
needs
a
to
later
be
date.
understood that she has not done the sampling this year.
Correct. That's part of
we don't
my
even
point.
have the data.
Right, that's my point.
Sarah, some of us were talking before the meeting, I mean, do we have to wait this long to get these results? Because it's all like last
Yeah.
year,
Right.
so we're like dealing with it.
We've been sending partial things to Adam directly, like the sampling for the algae and things to that effect. So we give him regular updates on that. But no, we already have data for this year. It's coming in. So my intent with this summary report was that we would pump these out more quickly. So I think developing that timeline and having that in our project will then hold us accountable to those dates to get that back to you.
Okay,
So
that'd be good.
I am happy to build those in. So after we sample, it can take our samples, some of them are done within a day or two. Some of them can take up to a month
Okay.
to process those. So that's where we can kind of develop. So that's the things that I need from the
Okay.
board. What are the recommendations? What is the timeline in which we want to change or modify anything that we do so that I can better meet the needs?
I feel like, based upon this discussion, that maybe you and Adam need to kind of work on putting in writing what the recommendations are, because last year we talked about some best practices. Seems like Chitwood is well on its way to getting some sort of solution. Somebody needs to deal with Knob Creek. So maybe you guys need to put those in writing for the board. You're probably better able.
Could that be reasonably accomplished by the July 20th meeting? Would that be?
Yeah, I think we
And
can
I'd be,
work out a plan.
okay, I'd be happy to sit down with you guys as
Like-
well, and then we can bring something back for further.
Because like you said, additional monitoring, I mean, some of these things, we need it written down so we can track it and
Right.
do it.
Okay, well, if you have the time, I hate to take too much of your summer, but if you could, we could do that between now and the next meeting. We'll get with Adam and we'll work it out. All
Awesome.
right, well, thank you for coming. We generally excuse you because I know you have other things to do on a Saturday, but thank you.
You don't need to meet for the contract aspect.
I think it's right now.
Oh, for next year, sorry. Yeah.
You wanted to skip to that?
We've already started our sampling on a,
So, so I need a motion to approve the 2019 through 2020 water testing agreement with IU, please.
I move to approve.
And a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? fire that down and I'll sign it, and then we can let Sarah be on her way. Sarah, thank you as always.
Absolutely. And we'll chat this week about
Okay, perfect.
what would be the best plan
This is for you.
for our sampling. So
Appreciate your efforts.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thanks.
much.
Have a good weekend. Okay. All right, before we continue, for those of you that haven't been to a meeting for a while, we've been doing things a little differently, and we've reserved public comment for the end of the meeting. We have made some exceptions over the last couple of years. For right now, I'm going to stick with that plan today, and we will. If you have questions, make a note of them. This is just the first reading of the budget today, so it's a work in progress. It takes all summer and halfway into September to get it done. So nothing being officially decided on that. With that, Michael Blackwell, our faithful treasurer.
Thank you. We did not have a meeting in May, so I'm going to cover both months. The month of April, we had $24,033 in income, $45,573 in expenses, for a loss of $21,539. That should have been in your packet. In May, it kind of turned around a little bit. $60,955 in income, $41,506 in expenses, for a gain of $19,448. So with that said, if you've had a chance to review the report of claims, does it please the board to do both months at the same time? Okay.
Absolutely.
So I will accept a motion to approve the report of claims for April and May 2019.
Second. Oh,
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, I'm going to go through the budget pretty quick. If you want to write down the account number, I have a pen up here. You can come up and get a piece of paper. That way, if you have any questions about a certain item or description, then write it down, and I'll answer it at the end of the meeting. I'm on the Finance Committee, Pam's on the Finance Committee, Debbie Ladyman. We're lucky to have Debbie. She's a retired certified public accountant. I'll tell you what, I'm learning a lot from her.
Thank you.
And Adam, and sometimes Alex, are on the Finance Committee. So we've had one meeting, we put together the 2020 budget, here goes. As far as revenues, there's a difference of $18,000 in income, and the reason for that is we expect hopefully $10,000 more in riprap, dredging and riprap income. It's private dredging. Again, if you don't know what private dredging is, write it down, come up and get a piece of paper, write it down, I'll answer that. We have an addition of $4,000 we're hoping in park admission fees. Now that would not happen this year with all the rain. And then another $5,000 in grants and donations that we're hoping for. Alex, there is a mathematical problem in your column there. That equals 19,000, but it only comes up to 18,000 at the bottom, so if you check that one, please. That's revenues, increase of 18,000. Wages, total wages is a difference of adding $53,000, and I'll tell you why. We are proposing to hire a full-time excavator operator. We let one go about 2 years ago. His name is Eddie. He was a fantastic operator. He left us for a $95,000 job with benefits. We're going to bring on Clinton, who's equally as good, for about $40,000 with benefits. He will be full-time. And when I get through this page, you'll understand why. So that's an increase of $53,000 in wages and benefits. So when we go down to the hourly and seasonal, we're at a loss of $43,000 because we hired a full-time operator. It's almost a wash. This guy's going to be with us full-time. Disposal site prep, debris removal, dredging, private riprap, etc. The committee believes that this is moving the right direction. So you'll see there at the bottom, we saved $43,000, but the total increase is about $9,000 for salaries and wages. Nobody needs any notes. Supplies, the increase there is $3,000 in gas and diesel. Repair and maintenance stayed the same, and total supplies increase of about $2,900. You need to check on that one, I'll thank Alex. Okay, services and charges. Difference of $5,000 increase. We expect an increase in mowing. We've had, I don't know how long he's been mowing grass for $10,000. We expect some kind of increase next year. Event planning, we added $1,500 in event planning, item 6441. Insurance is staying the same, and utility services is staying the same.
Net insurance account for the additional insurance that we're.
That's liability, yes, what we just approved.
Yeah, probably with the First Insurance Group.
Good question. Okay, okay, the next page, decrease in building and grounds from 15,000 to 10,000. We did upgrade the bathhouse. We took 5,000 out of this year's budget, or actually last year and this year's budget to improve the bathhouse. An additional of $2,500 in equipment rental. We've been real successful in renting the equipment to prepare the disposal site. And I wish I had some pictures to share with you, but Adam rented a long arm excavator and really got a lot of work done with the disposal site.
Yeah, we got more done in a week than we've gotten done in a month. That's a pretty nominal cost, but then we'll have the correct equipment out there.
Also, there's an increase in disposal site prep. We're going to build another ramp so that the articulating dump truck can move up several ramps and dump the debris and be more efficient. Actually, the total in services and charges went down $1,000 from last year. But the grand total is up $2,000 just because of the math, okay? If there's any questions on that. The last page, okay. We're going to put $30,000 in gatehouse repairs. I think everybody agrees that we've got to do something with the gatehouse, so we put $30,000 in there, and we'll discuss that with the board and the public as the months go by. So the total difference from 2019 to 2020 is $44,000. That puts us about $26,000 overall in the red. And as if you look across there, we've been in the red, just about every month, but somehow we always come out in the black. That's the first reading of the 2020 budget. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right. Managers report, Adam.
All right, I kind of organized us. We had an offsite board retreat over the winter time where there were some goals and ideals for the year that we're trying to do. So I'm kind of gauging these towards those. The first thing that we have going on is the dredging and stabilization. We've completed the first priorities on 125, essentially the southern boundary going into the marina and the homes back there. We removed 1,489 yards from that area. And we have been having some work that I've actually had on our push boat. A head gasket cracked on us, and so we did most of that marina with a small barge while the big guy was getting repaired. That is back on the water as of yesterday and running. I've actually got yesterday to remove some of the debris that just came in from this last storm, and we'll be starting dredging next week. We'll have to dredge a little bit of around Ellis Point to get a big barge on that turns out a little more of a straight shot. And we'll be heading into our 2 priority zones in the Chitwood area. The first one, the number written down with the western north-south channel, and the northern east-west channel will be the second priority up there. So we'll be starting next week, so we'll move along with that. It's nice to have everything else back up and running. For vegetation control, it's been a very slow year. We had so much rain, kind of how Sarah mentioned earlier with the sediment, really blocks out the sun. So really waited until the water kind of warmed up until we had growth, and we had pretty explosive growth really in the past couple of weeks. We did come out for the first treatment on Friday the 14th. We treated 36 acres of milfoil and 15 acres of mixed submerged vegetation. This entire treatment was primarily submerged vegetation. That was at a cost of $28,227. And we'll keep an eye on that with how slow growth we have. There may be a chance that we have to come back and treat some of the other areas that weren't ready. So we will keep an eye on that and do continuous monitoring. Lake safety and signage, all the rain that happens in a heck of a year of buoys. We are working on getting all it's an ongoing basis, keeping the safety zone buoys in place. We actually are in the process of creating a digital map for where all the buoys are supposed to be and types of buoys. I think historically it's always been in the heads of staff. So we're looking at getting something where people can look at it and say, all right, something's missing. We can check every year and actually have a checklist to go off of that. And we are trying out some new techniques. It seems like the chains have all used to rust out and break. So we are testing out using stainless steel cable and different anchoring methods to see if we get some more longevity on the anchoring systems. We'll continue to go with that. There are still some areas that we use a little more buoys, and we do have some more in order, so that's just kind of an ongoing process. For our communications and advertising, we do have a goal of increasing non-resident user fees by 10% for the year. We're off to a heck of a start at the beginning with Monroe flooded out, the beaches closed down. However, the continued rain is really just kind of putting a little bit of damper on people wanting to get out and recreate. Today was another good example of why I've been on the boat once this year on the personal boat. So we are trying to up that. We've actually been trying to increase our Facebook usage, advertising for events and for the beach. I've started discussions with Bloom Magazine and Visit Bloomington to try to get some more advertising, just to draw people out here. Really just trying to get our name more known in Bloomington, especially for the park and beach areas, that doesn't put any more strain on boating capacity out there. To that, it's been had a lot of voters. I know I've heard a lot of calls. There's crazy new voters out here. I expect that to start dropping down as Monroe becomes more available. The ramps are finally starting to be usable. So I think we'll see a big exodus of non-resident voters going back to Monroe. So we've kind of catching all that overflow. So I think we have had a lot of people who aren't familiar with the lake, or just that we're kind of antsy to get out after all the rain. We do have brochures and pamphlets that we do hand out to new residents with voting rules and regulations. Unfortunately, when you have new people, it's like your driver's license. You give them all the rules and permits you want. Eventually, someone's going to mess up and hit a tree. Hopefully, we don't have any accidents out here. But we have stepped up our patrols and we've been in contact with the conservation officers to try to get them to come out to our area more. They were actually out a handful of times this year, including yesterday. And they no longer have a big white boat, so you'll know them once they're on it, they kind of sneak up on you in the current boats that they're using.
And you also mentioned, I know that I received some complaints too about some of the boating activity out there, and you had indicated that as residents or freeholders, we also have the ability to call DNR conservation.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the concerns that I had was some nighttime activity with jet skis and boating out there. It's very not feasible for us to keep on lake patrol 24 hours a day out of the lake. So one of the things that you do have in your toolkit as a resident is conservation officers are a 24-hour law enforcement patrol. So if there are some issues like that where you do see groups of boats or very unsafe boaters at nighttime, that's always an officer we can call law enforcement and dispatch, and they would have actually more authority as far as prosecution for federal and state voting laws. So I just want everybody to know that is in your toolkit. Obviously, most of the time, you can see us call and we get out there and check things out, or try to reduce it as we can, just so everybody knows on that.
Adam, who do you call? Like, is it 911 or something, or what do you do?
No, we can, I think in the last newsletter there was the phone number, but we will put that on the website actually as well. I can put that on the front page on there just as a contact resource. So if you go to lakewomen.org, we'll get that on the website.
Okay,
here,
thanks.
However, if they don't have anybody available, I mean, because it's a lot of trouble to book up a boat and come over here
Sure.
at 3 in the morning, and so, I mean, I wouldn't count on that 100% either, And also, I do have a question, years ago, you guys had contracted with IU for the cadets to run the boat patrol, and then I think they got a new chief, and they didn't want to do it, but now I understand they have yet another chief. I wonder, is there any merit to checking out, see if maybe he would want to do that?
Yeah, we can definitely reach out again to the new chief. I think it was just turned over this winter time to the new chief. Yeah, the last chief did not believe that it was safe enough environment to attitude towards police in general to have these young cop cadets out here. But no, we can definitely check that for that.
So they want you to do it instead?
Yeah, exactly. And we've actually had picked off a couple boats this year. We're pretty active out there, especially on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I've had a couple of times, we've had jet skis doing donuts right by the beach. And, no, we've had to leave quite a few people, a couple of people off the lake and have revoked their permission to come here, which we do have the ability to do. Finally, the fireworks update. Mailers are out. We are starting to receive donations. Fireworks will be on Friday, July 5th at dusk here at the park. We have a rain date on Saturday, July 6th. It's the same company that we had last year, but we actually bumped up the budget to $8,000 this year. To see if there's a difference. They keep trying to get us to go to 10,000 and saying that we beat out the county fireworks, and ultimately maybe, but we did step it up a little bit. So I told them, we need to really see the difference if we're gonna continue that. So I'm pretty excited for that to come out. So we will, as always, we'll shut down the park in this area after 4 o'clock. The beach is closed. We clear out the shelter house, clear out the fallout, so the entire parking lot, beach clears out. If you are going to be watching from land, by boats, we ask that you stay back. COs were out last year driving around, but we also had a couple times where we have these water fireworks that kind of go off along the shoreline. So just keep a safe distance, please, and make sure these lights are working. It's always a big concern keeping lights on.
What distance would you say is safe? Yardage wise, just for,
Oh, I'd say at least 300 yards.
okay.
I mean, Pam will be out there doing that.
What's that?
I mean, you'll be out there doing that.
Adam, were you gonna mention that you're charging for fireworks?
Yes, we are this year, since we are setting it up, we are closing the park now, it's gonna be a special event, so we are gonna charge per vehicle, coming into the park. So we're gonna see how that goes, and I'm hoping it'll actually increase some of the revenue. Well, I do get some people that donate a decent amount of money, we're just looking at $10 per car, I think it's a good even amount, and, so I think we'll see what type of revenue is generated from that, and hopefully we can bring in some more money to go towards that event. We always do make the cost back between donations from the freeholders and the general public, but if we can shift that more from the general public, I don't think anybody will be upset on that. So that's kind of where we are. Park's running good, in good condition, just if this rain would hold off, I think we'd be making a killing out here, but it's tough to get people to come out when it's just raining and sporadic every day.
Kind of a couple questions talking about park usage and fees. Sort of goes back also to the budget. Are we also looking at, not necessarily fee increases for freeholders, but looking at the rates that we charge for admission to the park and?
What month did we, December? Is December when we review those rates?
Yeah, but we do generally do budget for any potential increases. And I can actually, since this is the first review, I will get to the board. We're capped at the rate that we can increase by the cost of living index relative to our initial cost. So I will get a sheet to the board notifying our maximum fee increases. We can always bring that back at the next month's meeting.
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, what might be nice is if we can, even if we have to approve them in December, if we're considering them as we're doing the budget.
Right.
Would probably be helpful.
Yes, very good.
I also want to thank staff. The good thing with the range is being able to do some of the my area definitely appreciates some of the cleanup in the shed area and lower area. Biggest complaint I probably get is the leaning sign. So if we can either make the sign go away and put it on the building, that would be great. That would be awesome.
And one good thing, actually, one of the reasons too why I definitely was promoting bringing on a full-time equipment dredging operator, as we have all this great equipment, we have an entire winter month to come in here to do park maintenance. We need to redo the bridge, we should put a culvert in and stone it, we need to redo bollards, some drainage areas by the beaches. So I think bringing on a full-time equipment operator is gonna provide leaps and bounds with maintenance in the parks. If we do have the equipment and we have the expertise, we can finally do that in-house and not be out in substantial costs.
So that full-time will start when?
January.
That's like January 1st.
If
Okay.
approved, January.
Okay. And quick question, Who's responsible for going and getting all the debris out of the lake? I mean, we were out on the lake on Wednesday and it's floating around. So you talk about these crazy boaters and everything. There's a lot of junk out there.
I mean, we're actually out yesterday collecting debris. I know there's a couple big logs that washed in, and then we're coming on to the west end of Solomon Harbor. On that point, we actually went out and grabbed the big logs that we could get to with the
Okay.
car. So
Okay.
we do that. We did the big pickup, and then intermittently as debris comes in, we try to
Okay.
dedicate a day to that.
Speaking of the crazy boaters, one of the things I've noticed this season, and it might be from all the traffic being from Monroe, but the fishermen this year seem to be a lot more aggressive in where they're fishing. It's like, I don't have a
Absolutely.
problem with-
It's like the Indianapolis 500 in the morning across the lake.
Yeah,
It's
well,
just,
to me, it's like, I mean, I don't have any problem with fishermen coming in or women using the lake, but it's like when I'm out on the dock, when they're coming behind me as I'm throwing toys out for my dog, it's like, really, you're gonna have 1,650 acres and you have to fish right by me.
Yeah.
Must be, they must be a good star dog.
I was paddleboarding into my place and the fisherman yelled at me for getting in the way of his fishing. And I said, I live here.
That's just not nice, yeah.
There's times that we see with the barn is good. We'll slow down.
All
That's all I
right.
got for the managers.
Well, the great news is you're done, but now the next point is, agenda point is you as well. So that brings us to the sediment management project, and Adam?
All right, the sediment management project is ongoing. Last year we did present a preliminary conceptual design. In working with doing our due diligence, currently underway with Christopher Burke Engineering and a sediment transport study going on. They do have transducers and equipment in Bean Blossom Creek and at the spillway right now, monitoring flow and lake levels with the rains that we're getting. So that is just for voting, actually for the data that we're getting for this, the different rain fluctuations as well are actually pretty good for that. We did have to change up the design of the study a little bit. Initially, we were looking at doing grad samples for sediment in Bean Blossom Creek. However, after seeing some of these storms, where the creek was flowing with the depth, those would have to be done by boats, and we agreed that's probably not the best time to be out there on the creek as during these high peak storms. So what we've actually done is they're now utilizing our bathymetric studies. There's one that's done by USGS in '77, two more, one in 2000, mid-early 2000s, one in 2014, and then actually they just completed a bathymetric study, and we're actually able to get them to maintain the cost, so we kept the cost, I think it was right at $40,000 for the study, but then we actually got an entire new bathymetric study within that cost for this. What they're looking at doing is they can look at the sediment accumulation with modeling and computer work these days. They can actually relate the storm events per year and with the data that we collect to analyze what type of events are bringing in sediment loading. So we can look at total sediment loading through the years, so they can tag that to the rainfall data, which Brown County actually has very good rainfall data and gauges. And then we'll be able to predict on a event size basis sediment loading, i.e. a 5, 10, 50, 100-year event storm. We can predict sediment loading with the rainfall that we're having. What that's going to allow us to do is in the conceptual design, we want to know what our maintenance needs are going to be. One, if we can maintain the sediment loading that's coming and remove it. Or two, if we can only partially remove the sediment loading that's coming in, how long is the lifespan of that forebay going to be? The forebay is going to be the capture zone if and when the project gets implemented behind the berm that we're going to use our own sediment to create. So we want to be able to see, assume we have an astronomical amount of sediment come in or we can't maintain it. We want to make sure that we can consolidate and trap sediment for more than the life of any potential repayment on a bond. So we're doing that. That study should be done in the next couple months. And we will bring that back to the board, and that will allow us to really look at ongoing maintenance needs and lifespan. So I think that's a pretty critical element of the project and moving forward. But then we have, I don't know if you guys want me to do this or you want to do this, Mike?
Okay.
I can start.
You start.
So we've been working with Baker Tilly and Ice Miller doing our due diligence with the bonding issue So what we had from Baker Tilly is they actually went through, looked at the money that we were receiving already from raising taxes, the potential full cost of the project, which is around $3.5 million. They provided a report showing how much money we're actually bringing in towards the bond repayment of the current tax assessment, and how much the tax assessment would have to be increased to cover a full repayment on $3.5 million. So essentially, what came back in the packets, in the board packets, is a full report that actually has it broken down by home value and what the individual tax load would be in the document. It's also broken down by if this is your primary residence or your secondary residence, and there's different tax benefits and write-offs that you can get from those. If we were to move forward right now with a $3.5 million bond, it would require another 0.12% on our 0.24 tax, so essentially a 50% increase in taxes if we were to move forward with straight with bonding. Now, what we've said and what we've always said is we're not going to put this project on the back of the taxpayers completely, and this will not be 100% tax paid. So as you notice in the budget proposal for going into 2020, we did not increase additional taxes because we need to get the sediment studies back, look at the reports, and modify our conceptual designs. And also during this time, we're really going to be ramping up our potential fundraising and capital campaigns. There's some more agreements later on that we get to in the strategic planning committee. The actual agreement. But, so we're stepping up the financial, hoping to bring in some more capital and do some more fundraising. And we are actually going to be looking at trainings and kind of getting ourselves more capable to do that. There's definitely a lot of utilizers of the lake and the general public at large. So we're just trying to figure out how do we engage, how do we propose the campaigns, how do we contact donors. So as we are not raising the bonds this year, we are moving forward, ramping up our potential fundraising.
You'll hear more about that in a minute.
And you'll hear more about that in a minute.
But I guess I would just add a couple things. Adam, you said this is like for the whole project, and if you guys remember, the report was like $10 million to really fix the lake. So this is phase 1 and phase 2, based upon the engineers telling us that they needed to happen in a pretty quick sequence. So, you know, I think everybody heard and listened to, and we're doing our due diligence and really getting all the information we need to get the right solution, and then try to figure out, you know, how much that's going to cost and how we would pay for it.
This is
So-
actually 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
These numbers. You said just 1 and 2.
Phase 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought it was 1 and 2. That's what
A
the
little bit of
report
3, yeah, 3 would be included in that. And once we gather all the information, because we are still gathering information, we will have educational meetings, and I don't think we.
I'm going to talk
She's
about
going to get
that.
to that.
Good, all
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's coming next.
One of the things that I think is really important as well, and why I like the study that we're doing is, to me, building it is one thing, it certainly has its own cost ramifications, but the recurring expense of maintaining whatever we build and understanding how long it will even work allows us to know and make better informed decisions about how we need to proceed or if we need to proceed. Obviously, we need to proceed in some way, but if this is the right solution or not.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So Adam, just to clarify, then what's SRF and OM on the table here?
State revolving
State
fund.
revolving fund would be SRF, and OM would be open market. And the reason they split that out for potential bonding rates with the state revolving fund, we would essentially, it's a low, since we're not an active drinking water, it's what they call low priority. Now, low priority does not mean there's less of a chance of funding. What it means is they group together different projects for people that are coming in, and then they can combine those into the bond issuance. So if that were to happen, you could potentially draw out the timeline if you were to receive money, go through the bonding process. So if that were to not work out, they've included OM, the open market, where we're not going to the state program and go through open market bonding.
Okay, and then also just to clarify, the top part of the table is what is currently,
The top part is what is we're currently paying with the $63,000 increase that we did moving into this year. The bottom part would be the additional per residents'
Yeah.
costs.
Still a bargain, it's to me.
That's a misprint.
That's where we are with that. We're looking into this fall, having a couple meetings, we're looking at the planning committee update. So with that, Mary Jane, take it away.
Okay.
Yes. All right, I'm sorry, are we
Yeah, we're there.
Strategic Planning Committee? Yes,
Okay.
all the things we told you to look forward to are now, now on you.
Okay, we've had 2 SPC meetings since the last board meeting. And in May, we spent a great deal of time in that meeting talking through, because of what had been discussed in the April board meeting, talking through how we manage and structure fundraising and that kind of thing. And Kathy McClure very nicely put a handout together that creates a flow chart that explains how the Lemonade Days Committee is designed to work. I think there's enough for everybody. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I think we're at a point in the work that we're doing around fundraising that we need to recognize that there's some things the board's going to be deeply involved in and some things that other people are going to take upon themselves, or in this case, the Lemonade Days Committee is going to continue to do events for us. And in a few minutes, I'm going to ask Kathy to talk about the upcoming events. But this is just kind of a summary of how we got to where we are today. And I would say everybody take a look at it. And if you have questions, we're happy to answer them after this meeting or next month. And there are extra copies of this on the table for those who might be interested. But I think we are now in a good place. Am I getting a nod? Yes. We're a good place for how we're going to work going forward. Lemonade Days is going to continue to host events to raise money for the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund. And the board is going to begin to work on capital campaign development. And that brings me to the next thing in your board packet, which is an agreement with Johnson Gross Nickel to do some training for the board, a half-day session. And I'm not going to go through every single detail because I assume you all read it. And I think this is the right next step for us. And I would like to see a motion to approve this agreement.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Are there any questions about it? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Have it?
No.
I might add that this company has been recommended to us by Debbie Ladyman, and we've had a meeting, some phone meetings with them, very impressive, and we're all feeling like we have limited fundraising skills. You know, everybody's done a silent auction, or, well, not everybody, and not everybody does it like you, Kathy. But this is a bigger deal, and we kind of feel unprepared to know how to ask for big dollars. So this company hopefully can guide us and shepherd us a bit.
And we also actually paid someone to do some research for us.
Correct,
So now we've got
yeah.
some data, we need to know
Yes.
how to approach these people.
Yes. And I would also say Adam and I've been in contact with Mark Boyatot, who's doing the prospect research. And Adam and I also had a meeting earlier, God, it seems like a long time ago, in April.
Was that long?
Was it, or the 1st of May? I don't,
Yeah, maybe early
anyway,
May.
we talked to Megan Neese at the Community Foundation for Bloomington and Monroe County. What I will tell you is, everybody we've talked to, because Pam and I had met with Sarah Beggs from the IU Foundation, everybody we meet says the board is the center of the fundraising universe.
Yes.
And the board has to get actively engaged in this. And that's why I think doing this training at this point in time makes a lot of sense.
Well, you have a motion and a second.
Any opposed?
And then you'll coordinate a date with us, like to do the training.
We
Oh,
need to talk about that.
we need to talk about that.
Okay.
Angela is available to do the training. We'll come back to the motion.
Okay.
Angela is able to do the training on August 1st and suggested that Pam and I thought it might be a good idea if we went to her office, which is in Greenwood.
Sure.
Because it's, you know, for those who live in Indy, it doesn't make such a long trip.
Well, plus their fees or plus their charges.
Yeah,
so-
and we
trying to
probably
keep
save a
costs
little money on travel time and gas.
That's a Thursday, I believe, from 4 to 8. Is that
Okay,
what
so
she
it's a
outlined?
late afternoon
And
session.
we would want all board members who, if possible,
Commit to
to
be
attend.
there. Yeah.
If you have a strong issue with, you know, or a reason that you do not want to do this, we can talk about that later, but I think it would be significantly wonderful if we could all be in attendance, and Adam as well. And Kathy has also asked, given her role in the Lemonade fundraising, that she would be a part of it, which I think is a great plan.
And what's that day again?
Thursday, August 1.
1st.
And that's when she is first available. She's very busy. That doesn't mean we couldn't find another day, but I'd like to get started if we can. And I wondered if a Thursday would be better for you, Laura, if you're, okay. All right.
What time is that?
4 to
4
8.
p.m. to 8 p.m.
I'm on duty that day. I can see if I can get off.
Okay, thanks. Back to the motion.
And where was
Okay.
it gonna be, did you say?
Their office is in Greenwood,
And
just
we'll-
off of 65, Les.
We'll
get
send.
it.
It's
We'll
on
send
the
it
top
out,
of
and
their
it's-
letterhead.
It's on the
too.
letterhead too.
Okay.
Right off of the exit 99, off of 65. It's like right there in the strip mall, McDonald's there.
Back to the
Okay.
motion.
Back to the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
On that motion, who motions and seconded, please?
Pam
I
motioned it.
motioned.
And I seconded.
Debbie seconded.
Okay, now I'm going to go back to something Mike started to talk about. At the last SPC meeting, the committee spent some time talking about certainly fundraising as well as, you know, our financial needs for the sediment project. And we also talked about the particulars of the bonding process. And so the SPC would like to recommend to the board that we schedule a couple of larger public meetings, as we did back in 2017, to do the following. Update everybody on the sediment mitigation project, discuss the bonding process and how it works, and then talk about our fundraising efforts in real time, where we are at that moment. And we have earmarked 2 dates, and they're both Saturdays. One would be Saturday, September 28th, and Saturday, October 12th. And we hope by having 2 meetings that we would get more people, you know, so that you don't have to go to both meetings, but everybody would make it to one of them. You can come twice if you want to hear it repeated, but so that's a recommendation, and I'd like to know if the board thinks it's,
Is the board expected to be at both of those meetings? I
Would be
can't be at
nice.
the 12th, but.
it would be nice if a majority of the board could be at both meetings, but I don't think that's mandatory.
Well, I think we do the best we can. And then, yeah, if you can't get to both, then one will suffice. Is everybody looking at calendars, or is that something we want to talk about more in July?
Now, there's not really any opposition. I'll reach out to City of Bloomington so we can try to get the city hall there.
Okay.
It seems like it's a pretty good
Maybe
venue.
pencil that in. Okay.
I think in the SPC meeting, we did say something about doing them in the morning, or doing one of them in the mornings. And the farmer's market will still be in session.
Last year we had, I think we did at 3 o'clock. The farmer's market goes until 1, I believe.
1 or
We figured
2.
out. So we may have to look, in order to have parking, probably about around 3 o'clock early afternoon.
Okay.
Are we gonna put anything out written before that time, or for people to digest, or just get all the information then, do you know what I'm saying? Or send out some kind of like little,
Well, there's so
would
much
a
on the
survey maybe come after the public meeting, now that,
Yeah, because we had talked
a lot
about.
of people probably won't, I mean, a lot of people will come, but a lot of people probably need to get the information otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's right. But the whole Baker Tilly document is in the board packet and available to people right now.
Everything is.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what we would write additionally.
Well, we don't really know what's gonna happen with the sediment transport study yet.
No,
We
no,
don't
no.
really know what the alternatives are.
Well, that's part of what we're going to discuss in the meeting.
But if we get information before that, Debbie, it would be on the website. I mean, it's all should be made public.
We at some point sent some kind of survey to all the freeholders about,
We talked,
Some
we've
choices.
discussed that, and it makes, since the, part of the purpose of this meeting is to be educational,
Okay.
that we would do the education and then survey people once they had
Gotcha.
the knowledge.
Yeah.
One of the things we may consider doing as well is looking at the feasibility of recording at least one of the ones, so those who are not able to go to the meetings have a mechanism to actually.
oh, we did that last year.
As we
You
did in
that last
the,
year.
in the 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
that's a great idea.
Well, Adam, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind reaching out as to the availability of that space for those dates, and then I think we come back in July and sort of solidify.
Did you decide you wanted to do both Saturdays? Like, what about making an evening option for someone, like, like a weekend or evening? I mean, think about it, but,
Okay.
Well, we
just
can
in
think-
terms of if you're trying to get a lot of people to come.
You weren't at the one in 2017, were you?
No, but I listened to the whole thing.
Well, but there, it was a packed house.
Right. Well,
So-
we also posted signs, you're gonna lose the lake, which we can't do this time, but, yeah.
Okay.
That wasn't why they all came. Anyway, as of June 9th, we have $2,850 in the Brown County Foundation, in the fund in the Brown County Foundation, and we have $5,140.46 in the Community Foundation in Bloomington and Monroe County. And I asked Kathy, and looks like she's more than ready, to come and talk about the upcoming Lemonade Days events. And so we're going to let her have a couple minutes to do that. Yeah, you're on.
Thank you. Before I go through this, I do have flags that last year the people that drove boats for us for the home tour got, but we have them for sale. If you like a flag, a Lake Lemon flag is $20. And we will be putting out a thing about trying to do a clothing sale. We didn't quite have enough orders in the fall, so we're trying to get now this summer. So watch for information on that. We made a flyer like this about all the events that we have coming up for 4th of July. They're over here. And please take some with you if you would like to share with friends and neighbors. We have quite a number of things. We're calling it the Lemonade Days 4th of July Extravaganza. And we tried to have things throughout the whole weekend to make this a fun event for the community. We are going to do a dock decorating contest, and there's going to be prizes. That information is in there. And then on Friday morning, we're going to have a wine and canvas event. We have an instructor coming. We're doing this at the Boys and Girls Club next door, so we don't interfere with all what's going on here at the park. Basically, you don't have to have any art experience at all. They come, they will teach you step by step exactly how to do it. It's a lot of fun.
And you bring your own.
BYOB, yes. We can't sell alcohol, but we bring whatever you want to drink. And it's a lot of fun and it's easy. And like I said, you don't have to have any art experience, and it's a fun memory-making thing. So I do need pre-registration for that. It's in the newsletter. If you got that, you can click on the link. You can go on the Lake website. It's on there. Click on that. And it costs $35. All of that's going to Wine and Canvas, but they are going to donate $5 a ticket back to the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund. And if we have more than 25 people, they'll donate $10 a ticket back to the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund. So pretty much you come, we are going to sell crackers and cheese if you want, if you want that to go with your wine. And then fireworks, we already mentioned. Saturday is the boat parade. Their theme this year is Christmas in July. And you can contact Amanda Richardson to register for that, or you can just show up at Cemetery Island to be judged. And she does give first, second, and third place for prizes for that.
Does the theme for the docks does that same theme?
No, it's different. The dock theme is we're gonna give a prize for the most original, the best 4th of July theme, and the best use of props. So these are not massive prizes, but it should be fun. And I'm kind of hoping that one of the things that also is going to have, we're going to have art displays around the lake, a couple, so you can drive around and see them. And people will also be able to see the docks that are decorated, just to kind of have a fun sense of community. So if you are going to participate in the dock decorating contest, if you email me, my information is in there, then I'll know for sure to go and we'll know to go and look. So we don't miss the dock, and so we know who to give the prizes to. Then on Saturday after the boat parade, we're having a family carnival, and we've got prizes, we've got games, we've rented a bounce house and a 75-foot obstacle course with a rock wall. We have all kinds of fun stuff. We have street performers coming, and it's designed to be a fun event for the whole family. It's going to be $5 a person to buy a wristband in advance, or you can buy it at the gate. And just come and have a good time. We do need some more volunteers. If you're willing to give us a couple of hours of time to stand next to a booth while kids throw balls to the target, would be great. The sign-up list is over here. But it's designed to be fun for the whole family, not just for little kids. So we hope everybody will come to that. And
you should point out that that also is up at the Boys and Girls Club, because we want to leave this space open for regular traffic. And there's parking over at the
IU Rowing Center, you can park, and we're going to have a shuttle boat. Yes, thank you for mentioning. So you can park your car at the IU Rowing Center. If you don't want to pay, you can park here. And then there'll be a shuttle boat that will drive back and forth between the IU Center Rowing Center dock and the Boys and Girls Club dock. And you can just shuttle back and forth over for that if you want to. And then also through that weekend, we have a volunteer. We're going to have an ice cream boat. So you watch for the big popsicle on the top of the boat. You get free ice cream. And we're asking people if they'd like to make a donation to the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund in exchange for their ice cream. But it's not. It is free ice cream. We're not selling it. So
I want to know if Malcolm's driving the ice cream boat.
well, we're going to park the ice cream boat in certain spots. Yeah, it's a little hard to navigate. So you kind of have to come to us, but that's all right. But yes, we'll watch for that throughout the weekend. And then the other thing we're doing is message in a bottle contest. So we're putting some bottles with the message that says you win a prize, and if you fish it out of the lake and you get the one with the prize message in it, you can contact the information, give the code, and you get a free prize for that.
Just a few bottles, not a lot of bottles.
No, and maybe people will pick up the other bottles that might be floating in there, put them in their trash, and clean up the lake.
Do a little debris removal.
So kind of what we're hoping, that they don't throw it back in if they don't have a prize in there. So, let's see, like I said, I have flyers. If all of the board members would be willing to share with the people in their district and anybody that's here, please spread the news. And we will advertise it on the Bloomington website and the Brown County website as per request at the last SBC meeting. But mostly this is lake residents primarily, but we love to have anybody that wants to come. And let's see if there's anything. Just if you're able to help us, we could use some more people. You can even sit in a chair next to the game. You don't have to do a whole lot, but we just need some bodies to do that. And then we, like I said, we have an ice cream vendor, we have street performers, we have some other fun things that are going to be there. So that's our next event, and we are in the starting, believe it or not, the planning stages for this September. We're going to do the home tour again and the auction. So if you would like your home to be part of that, or if you have something you could share with the auction, please let me know, because we're starting the planning stages for that. So put that on your calendar. That's going to be in September, on September 14th, that Saturday.
Did you say the theme for the boat parade?
Boat parade is Christmas in July. Dock decorating is use of props, 4th of July, or most creative. So
Sky's the limit.
yeah, sky's the limit. But the goal is to have a community event that's fun for everybody and make it kind of be a weekend thing, extravaganza. So that's where we stand. Did I mention everything?
I
think so.
you covered it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work. I'm only standing up because my shoulder hurts and this is more comfortable. So, but I do have one more thing I want to say to the board. For those of you who missed it as you read the newsletter, Kathy is the editor of the Lake Lemon Lines newsletter, and one of the other things that we talked about in the SBC after the April board meeting was getting a better schedule for getting things into the newsletter. And you may have noticed that she's now sending emails with questions about like what should be in this next issue, and then there's a draft that comes out, and so I would just encourage everybody on the board to make sure you're responding to her in a timely manner, and I include myself in that because I'm not always the most timely on that. But thanks again for
And I
that.
will mention to that, if anybody has anything they would like for me to put in, or a picture you want included, or somebody you think would be interesting for us to interview, please let me know. I'm open to all suggestions.
All right, and that concludes my report.
All right.
Our report.
Are you going to stay, like, hit me over the head?
I'm just going to stand quietly.
All right.
This is the best I've felt since I got up this morning.
Very good. All right, you guys have been very patient. Before we do public comment, I want to do one quick thing. This meeting, I kept thinking I'm missing something. There's something I'm supposed to be preparing, and I'm forgetting it. And the problem is, it's not a problem, it's a good thing. Usually there's one board member who's leaving, one or two. But this year, Michael Blackwell has graciously run again for his position, and due to some, and due to some variations in the rotation of different representatives, people leaving early, we don't have anyone leaving. So this board that you see today, we'll have to look at our beautiful faces for a whole nother year, and so we're not saying goodbye to anybody. But I just wanted to take a second to thank you all for your time and your service. This is a job we do volunteer for, but it is not always easy, and you all spend a lot of time when you might like to be playing on the lake working on things. So I just wanted to say thank you from on a personal note.
And if I may, we have former board members here.
I'm getting to that.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I'm getting to that.
Madam Chair.
Yeah. So, and along those lines, I've always enjoyed this meeting because we do see returning former board members, and bear with me, I don't want to miss anybody, but Jean McClarney and Barb Ritter, you don't have to stand, but thanks for coming back to see us. Also, I think I see Rex Taylor in the back. Rex, are you still here? No, he must have gone home. I'm getting there. Dave Hobson, right up here in the front. Thanks, Dave. Always good to see you, and Sharon. And let me see. I think that covers it. If I missed you, speak now or forever hold your peace. Also, former lake manager Bob Madden has come down from Fishers, Indiana, or Noblesville. Are you living in Fishers? Noblesville. Oh. Welcome back, Bob. And you did bring some news, if you'd care to share that about Bill, I appreciate it.
Yeah, the third board chairman of the district, about 2001 time, was a gentleman in Pam's district, a gentleman by the name of Bill Cobb. And Bill passed away in May. He was chairman for 2 years. And Bill was very instrumental early on, even before we started thinking about dredging. We had to get the weeds under control. And that was our very first initiative, and Bill was very instrumental in helping us put the protocols and procedures together and the mappings to start the whole weed vegetation control process. So he was a good man, he was a good leader, and he'll be missed. But he died at the age of 79.
He was a great help to me when I first got on the board. He would come and I have maps and charts that Bill shared with me so I could understand better what I was getting into. I probably should have looked at them before I signed up, but at any rate, so thank you for that time. Public comment. Yep, we'll just take you in order of
I'll jump right in and grab the third rail here. I want to go back and ask about taxes. You said that it would, to completely fund the bond, it would involve increasing taxes 50%, but that's just you're talking about 50% of the part that goes to Lake Lemon, right? It's not overall property taxes or not?
It's just the conservancy.
It's just the conservancy portion of it. So that, if only 20% of your property goes to that, and the rest is something else, that's not being touched, it's only increased.
Yeah, apparently it's 0.24, so the 24 cents per $100 of assessed value, so it'd be an additional 12 cents per $100. But yes, it's just a special benefits tax.
Okay, so it doesn't mean your taxes.
On your tax bill, it's the assessment other, like the spring and fall assessment other, and that's your conservative.
Yes, Mark?
What is the definition of full-time for the excavator person? I mean, what do you anticipate?
Go ahead, Adam, you start.
We're gonna be 40 throughout the season, and then November through February, 32 hours a week. So,
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna try to keep him busy. Again, we have a lot of lists on private riprap, private dredging. So I think it's gonna be a great benefit for us. So obviously, like days like this, we're gonna have to find something for him to do, you know, and that's a concern. But
it was an additional, like around $7,000 to bring him up from part-time seasonal to that full-time position. When I looked at the cost, we were essentially getting all these extra hours at a direct cost us about $6 an hour. So I mean, even if there's some office work, and I think the cost benefit ratio is going to be outstanding.
Was that the overall cost with his benefits too? Like, because, you know what I'm saying?
I think it was.
When you quote that, I just want to double check.
$47,000 with
Yeah.
benefits.
Yeah.
That includes up to $66,000 insurance. We pay 8% insurance, and 3% for retirement. So I think overall it was $47,000 with benefits.
only a $10,000 offset between salaries and wages, okay?
Right.
So it's costing us $53,000, but we're saving $43,000 in hourly wages. So it's only an increase in $10,000, if you look at it that way.
Right. And we budgeted an additional 10 on income side because we expect him to be
Thank
doing a
you.
lot of private.
Right.
Yes, Dave?
Yeah, on behalf of the neighbors, and I again like to thank the board for taking away a little bit of debris happened this year. In the past, we had K-Mo's come in and take truckloads out. He has a truck that holds about twice as much as the Triumph does. And the last couple of years, they thought we had the most we've ever seen, and he took out a couple of truckloads. This year, he took out 4 truckloads. And the dredger also took out 2 full loads, which holds a lot more than he carried the truck does. So this year was absolutely amazing as far as the size of it. We had a lot of more stuff. It would not have been able to handle it manually had it been done with equipment. So Adam, thank you for organizing that and getting that done. Certainly appreciate that. So thank you.
Yes, Frank? Sorry.
Just want to communicate to everyone that we have a ton of information that's going to be sent out between now and the end of the year regarding sediment management, our dredging operations, our communication information. If there's anyone here that does not have an email, or you know of anyone that's in your district that does not communicate by email, please communicate with your director here. Eventually, we will, as was discussed, we'll have this survey that will go out to everyone. We have to get information from everyone. If we don't have an email process that will change how we end up having to communicate with everyone, for those people that do not have email, we want to make sure we include those, but that'll end up being by registered mail or a restricted mail process. And we obviously want to keep that item down as little as possible. So if you know of anyone that does not have email, please let your board member know so we can make sure we continue to communicate with those people.
Russ?
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know, if you live in Chitwood area, Snug or Salmon, anywhere in Brown County, that if you support this sewer initiative, I'd like to get signatures and address for contact information. It's critical that we have a high percentage of interest and participation for this thing to happen.
When you say high percentage, have they given you a target of what you need to have, or how many, like, you need 80%, or, yeah?
I think we should be able to get close to that. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it is.
Is anybody in Brown County? We're not affected by
At
it.
this point, the proposal is not to branch off to the North Shore.
Right.
But.
In other words, if I sign it, does it do you any good?
Correct.
Does or doesn't?
It does not.
Okay.
I didn't do that today. Okay.
Did I miss somebody? Oh, Russ, could I add one quick thing? This is a sewer initiative, not a septic initiative? Because that's a huge,
But
that'd be great.
it gets involved, and those, we're still in discussion about, now, if you hook in the one plan, you hook into the sewer, you've got to fill in your tank and stop using your septic.
Oh, yeah.
So there are things like that we're still in kind of discussion with, and so it's quite a project.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Very bad.
Just a comment and a suggestion.
Sure.
For the capital campaign. First of all, I was on the board for the Boys and Girls Club, and we raised about $6.5 million a couple of years ago for 2 new clubs. One is that I would say to the board, it is 100% commitment to board members. I mean, it's a grind. The other suggestion would be, because the Boys and Girls Club has a stake out here with Camp Rock, you might at some point when you get down the path, talk to, bring in Jeff Baldwin and Leslie Asher and give a lesson to learn how they work with the Lumen community to raise that money. They have a lot of knowledge on that, and I think they could help you with maybe to avoid some missteps and what was successful. So just a suggestion.
That's a great suggestion.
Because they're really good at it. They really are.
Adam, do you have those people's information?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you for that, yeah. We'll run down every road here, this is a big game. All right, have I covered everybody? Any other thoughts? Huh? Let's eat lunch? I would move, I'm sorry, the next meeting will be right back here, July the 20th, 10 a.m., no lunch that time, this is the big kahuna, but we hope to see you then, and we hope that the rain holds off so you can get out on your boat between now and then. With that, I'd call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's eat. Adam, you want to tell them what we're eating?
I got catered by Bush's Lodge. I was told